You, I think you text me, or maybe you gave her the contact. She's like, "Where do you work?" And you told her about
I
FreightWaves.
had just gotten into Chattanooga. No, I had just gotten into Chattanooga from Hawaii, and I was my first day on the job in
The
media.
first day.
First day, maybe second day. And we are at a team event. I remember a bunch of people that were there, and I'm just a little nervous. I'm nervous. I haven't worked in like 4 years. And some girl just comes running, Travis Ryan, Travis Ryan. I'm like, who the hell is this? And it was Kaylee. She had like seen the press release or read some news and knew who I was. And she's like, I heard you guys are hiring for a meteorologist. And I was like, I have
Sure.
no idea what. Sure, Kaylee, that sounds great. And then yeah, look at I don't know, five years later, right?
She's running all kind of. I got a message. I think it was a LinkedIn post from her, a LinkedIn message that she had met you,
That night, she
and
said
I was
yes.
like, "Why? What are you up to, Travis?" First thought.
Yeah,
Second thought was, okay, I mean, and she came in as doing effectively a lot of grunt work, if you will,
yeah.
just taking media clips, then did some meteorologists, and now is running all content.
I know
So
it's awesome.
that is your greatest contribution to FreightWaves.
Oh, what about SCI, Craig?
Well, it's good too, but I would argue Kaylee maybe
From
a
a
bit little
human
better.
perspective, no doubt,
It's been
right?
amazing. SCI is amazing too. That is
Yeah,
your baby.
that's my baby.
The supply chain intelligence product. But Travis, I have called you the godfather of visibility.
Yeah.
Which you were an early in the visibility game. It's interesting when we did the Freight Tech Awards, we've talked about visibility being consistently being on that list.
Yep.
A couple of years, Project 44 was on the list. By the way, and I will say this, and I hope Jet hears it. If he would just apply, he can find out where they stand, but he didn't want to lose the spot. So he refuses to apply. Meanwhile, Matt at Forkite continues to apply.
Continuously.
They make a list. So I'd like to know where they would rank, but they won't actually apply. And we have a rule that now you must nominate yourself to do it.
Right.
Or be nominated, I should say.
Yeah.
They made no effort. But visibility became a huge business.
Yeah. So here's how it started. You may hear how it started. So we were, in fact, one of your journalists got me in a lot of trouble at one point. So it was 2000, I think 13 or 14. Tom Hine from Algex was working with Pepsi. They had started their brokerage at that time. And another guy named Adrian Parkaday, who he and Doug Miller, who also doesn't like me. I created a few enemies throughout this process.
It's like normal.
I created a few.
Part of being a founder, man.
He's one of them. There's a list that's about to get named here. And we got this call, and it's like, well, we are at the time. Pepsi was the largest private fleet in America. The 19,000 trucks, Frito-Lay, Quaker, Gatorade. This is at 10-4. It started 10-4, and 10-4 was, by the way, founded before Project 44 and Four Kites, just to be clear, 2012. And we had a product where in our marketplace you could kind of like what Bill was just talking about, we did 10 years ago, 12 years ago, where you could procure a truck, you could book it online, and it would show up, and you could see it, and you could track it in our system, right? We're the first company to ever really like kind of connect the Uberification of freight, but we didn't have like an engine behind it, and there was no density. Like you talked about liquidity. We didn't have any liquidity. There was no density in our marketplace. But we were demoing it to shippers. Pepsi saw it, and Pepsi's like, can you put all of our trucks in your system? So we called PeopleNet, and the only people that had ever really reached out to PeopleNet at that time were us and MacroPoint. And we brought 19,000 trucks to life, and it did not look pretty because we didn't know. We didn't have aerial orientation of the trucks. We had like sideways orientation of the trucks. So the behavior that the trucks were doing in the map was pretty terrifying. I'll just leave it at that to say PG rated. And Mark Solomon called me because he got wind of it. And I didn't really know the do's and don'ts of journalism. And the next thing I know, there is an article in print in DC Velocity that 10-4 and Pepsi partnered together to create all this. Well, I got sued by Pepsi. I thought
You got sued?
We got a legal letter from Pepsi.
Okay.
And I'm a CEO of the company.
As a cease and desist?
A cease and desist and a little bit more than that. Like remove all these things down. Like how do you take something out of print? These are all gone. The article doesn't exist anymore. I've tried so hard to find it. And I thought I was going to be fired as CEO. I thought the board was going to remove me. Like I had this like stain but what it did was it set off visibility. It was the best thing ever, right? It was the best press ever.
Well, there's no such thing as bad press.
Which I learned, which they say, and I don't know if that's totally true. But how easy is it to clean? But the internet, it is purged. And if anybody can find this document, by the way, I would be forever indebted if somebody could find the DC Velocity article that Mark Solomon, who my first day at FreightWaves, I get my org chart and I see Mark Solomon's name on the org chart. I was like, he's done. He's no way. But
he's the guy that nearly got you fired.
He's the guy that nearly got me fired.
So what was it? He heard that Pepsi was using.
He got a lead that we've been working with Pepsi, and Pepsi refused to talk to him. And I didn't cite anything overly confidential, but there were some things Pepsi did not. Doug was
Travis, you planted that story, didn't you?
I did not. I know people who have planted their own stories.
I think it's brilliant.
I did not plant my own story. I didn't.
As a media executive that actually sees all the shenanigans that people do, I think planting the story would have been quite brilliant.
If I was
that controversy,
had I known as much about media as I do now, I would have.
I still think you had good instincts there. Anyway, so okay.
So all of a sudden they fired us.
Pepsi
fired us. We had creative visibility. And so I hired Adrian from Pepsi. I just hired him and we went and hit the market and we closed our first company ever. We closed with Swift. And it's like, we just closed a trucking company. I'll never forget. We're in Swift's office long before the merger, right? And Mike was their CIO and he said, this is the future. The CIO of Swift back in 2014, 2015 saw that this was the future. He's like, we want to be a part of this future. We want to give our shippers the best level of visibility. The last thing we wanted to be doing is last. And so Swift was actually our very first paying customer. Crete was like our third paying customer. Wow. And so what we had that the other guys didn't have is we could walk into a Fortune 500 shipper and who doesn't use Niter or who doesn't use Swift or Crete? At that level, everyone does, right? Refrigerated, everyone uses Crete. Dry freight, everyone uses Knight. And so I'll never forget, we were at Home Depot and we walked in to do a demo, and they're like, they asked us like, zoom in on that truck, like look, zoom in right there. And we zoomed in and they found a lost load during the demo, right? And we didn't close Home Depot. But it kind of set off this trend where the food and beverage companies, but I've got to thank James Sembrot from Anheuser-Busch. That was our real flagship customer. What created, and if you want to talk about mandates, and one of my investors and I've been talking about mandates really can enable change in this industry. And it was Anheuser-Busch mandating visibility when their RFP went out. And so January comes out. We've closed a couple deals. We've got some nice customers, but no one's created a mandate. And at that time, I forget how many billions of dollars in truckload they were shipping. And the letter went out. And I don't know if I should name the carriers or not that said no. Probably should. And then the letter was like, if you would like to respond in our bid this year, you need to integrate with 10-4 to show us where all your trucks are at. This is Anheuser-Busch.
So they put it in the RFP.
And no one had ever done that. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. This is our moment. And Werner said, no way. And they said, cool, we'll go find someone else.
Werner said pound sand.
Werner told AB to pound sand. They called what they thought was a bluff. Swift was one of their core carriers. CR England, yes, let's go. And I can't remember, the fourth carrier would have been, it was CR England, Swift. The fourth, two said yes, and two said hell no, and they pulled them off the bid. And so they then said, okay, we'll do it. And then we integrated, and we had one of the largest shippers in America. And the reason that Anheuser-Busch wanted it was they have a wholesaler model. So AB ships from brewery to DC to distributor. The thing about beer that I don't think a lot of people realize is that they produce what they can produce and they ship what they can ship, and what you get is what you get. So I used to tell this story about how if the Super Bowl is happening, I think Peyton Manning used to do Budweiser commercials. There was some Peyton Manning commercial, right? And there was a high surge of Budweiser. And so distributors were ordering Budweiser. But when that truck, because it was a dedicated fleet, right? There's a lot of dedicated that came in, they loaded it with a truckload of Corona bottles, not Budweiser kegs. And so when the load would show up, they'd open up the door and they would have none of the product that they needed. So this was a way for Anheuser-Busch, because we integrated down to the SKU level, and this was a way for them not just to manage the visibility of their freight, but also what was on the truck, what didn't ship, what did ship, what was going to arrive. And it really created this amazing customer experience for the distributors. It created a customer experience for the people inside in St. Louis at their control center. And then we closed probably a dozen or 13 deals in a matter of months, and Trimble bought us like maybe 9 months after that mandate went out. In September 17. That mandate came out in January of 17, and then Trimble bought us in
I was walking
September.
into Atlanta FC football or soccer game. And I remember I saw the announcement. And this is FreightWaves, just so early. So I was driving most of the content in those days. And I remember thinking this is a really interesting story because like there's an acquisition. MacroPoint had been bought by Descartes.
That's right.
What, maybe 6 months before?
That's right.
Before?
Yep.
And it was like, okay, visibility. It feels a lot like, we'll get into this in a second, the whole freight matching. There's been a lot of M&A stuff. The visibility place, 10-4, MacroPoint was where the action was.
That's correct.
You got fired from Trimble.
Yeah, I did.
At some point.
At some point, 9 months later.
So 9 months later, they fire you. I'm not going to get into that.
We can if you want, but that's fine.
I'm not your therapist.
I don't need therapy on that one. I think they do.
But I want to talk about what it was like after the fact. You moved to an island, literally Maui.
Yeah.
You started growing coconuts.
I mean, I didn't start growing them, but yeah, I had coconuts there. They take about 10 years to fruit. Yeah.
And what was it like to have been fired from a company that you built and you knew that you were onto something, but
well, you know, I saw Michael Kornhauser a little bit ago from Trimble, one of my favorite people from Trimble. And it's like,
you guys are friends.
I love him. He's awesome. I don't know about anybody else there I'd say that about, but no, some of my team still works there. It's cool. I think it's like when I left, I took a leave of absence, which I don't think they like very much. But they sang me songs and they played all this music and they had like this performance for me. We can't wait for you to get back.
Wait, they fired you?
Hold on. Okay. I'll tell a little bit of the story.
All right, we got to hear it then.
All right. So when I took a leave of absence because I'm actually going to relate this to a brief moment with you and I where I came to you when I worked at FreightWaves. I was like, Craig, I'm kind of frustrated with how some things are here. And you're like, yeah, just give me some time to work on them. And I was like, yeah. It's going to go maybe do something else. And you're like, cool, we've obviously made it clear. Well, I had a similar conversation with Trimble about some departments that were really not functioning effectively, right? Just as a businessman, right? And they really didn't like what I had to say. So I was like, oh, I'm going to take a leave of absence. I'm like, we think that's a great idea. Go take a leave of absence. So they had a going away, like a party for me. It wasn't like a going away party. It was like a thank you. I really hadn't had a long vacation in 6 years. And yeah, they sang to me and like we had a performance and it was this whole thing at the office. I was like, oh, this is actually really sweet. Like all the Trimbles there, all the people from the Boulder, because all their execs live there. I take a leave of absence. I come back 2 months later and like, here's everything in a box. They just had all my shit in a box just waiting for me. And I was like, well, that's an interesting transition from celebratory founder to you can't even go and say goodbye to your employees. So clearly that was humbling. I mean, it was not fun. There's nothing fun about that, right? To build a company and put all your sweat equity and your life into it and then never go back in your office, never see the people. I don't know about never see the people, but really never say goodbye. And so, yeah, I had a little FU mentality after that, for sure. And I was like, well,
but you disconnected from the industry.
100%. I really thought that I didn't want to be in freight anymore. And I really didn't.
I met you briefly. I probably met you one time, maybe twice.
With Robbie Nathan at a I remember
it was a McLeod conference.
I was in Chicago. We were sitting at a table.
It was either a Trimble or TMW conference.
It was in Chicago. I think it was that. What was that thing in Chicago they used to have at that?
The Hotel? Transport.
Yes.
Yeah, it was something. Yeah. And I remember seeing you used to wear these really great suits, and you had, it was like a good-looking guy.
Thanks.
Totally act together, GQ. I was like, I want to be that guy. And then you called me out of the blue. I hadn't talked to you in 2 years. I thought you were dead or something. I know you left, and you literally went to an island, and you pop up out of nowhere, and you call me randomly. I don't even know, you knew that you had my number because we weren't friends. No, so we weren't close.
We were not.
And you're like, Fuller. I'm like, what's up? Like, I'm gonna come see you. I'm like, but why? You're like, well, I'm trying to get back in freight. And I'm waiting for you at the office here in Chattanooga. And there's a homeless man sitting in my lobby.
That's a metaphor.
At least
that's a metaphor, right?
It was you.
Yeah.
The islands.
The story George tells, you tell. I'm not sure. Yeah, that's a story that's told. Yeah, it's a story.
It's probably some truth to it.
There's probably some truth to it.
All right. So you come out and you join us at FreightWaves. And run media.
I had intervention. I've been out in Maui for a while, and I had this symptom, this syndrome that you develop over time. I call it jungle brain, which is when you really don't think clearly. We'll just put it that way, right? You're just not real into
Is it the
reality.
coconuts? Or
It's the coconuts.
whatever
yeah.
else you're throwing
No,
out?
it's like literally, the other thing I call it's like moldy brain. Like you spend too much time like disassociated from how the world works. And you know who called me is Andrew Leto called me. He's like, you are wasting your best years. Like, I don't care what you do. I don't know what you're doing, but you need to get back in the game. He's like, the game, we need you. The industry misses you. He's like, this isn't for me. Andrew wasn't trying to hire me, right? I mean, Emerge was up and running. I did not want to really go work in Emerge. No offense to Emerge. That, I'd kind of already been there, done that with that team. And he's like, why? He actually said, why don't you just call Craig? Why don't you see, just like
Interesting. Let
call
it.
him and see what he thinks? I never thought I was going to be in your office either 5 days after calling you.
I was
I never
amazing.
thought that.
I was like,
And it was,
this guy would look great on TV.
and then you offered me a job. This is where I'm going to tell a funny story about you. You offered me a job to run media, which I had no idea what that meant. And I was like, that's awesome, because I didn't want to do product anymore. I just didn't want that grind of making software, right? It was like something
I
different.
needed to bring you into the fold without making it disruptive to the team. And the safest place.
So you tricked all of us.
Well, the safest place was to put you into the media team
Yeah.
because it didn't have a lot of product people. And you quickly gravitated away from the media business.
Do you remember why?
No, I don't.
Okay, so I remember this story. I get a call from Craig one night, and I've had calls from CEOs that kind of go like this. It's like, yo, Travis, I need a favor. I was like, okay, cool. See what Craig needs. I need you to build me a shipper product in 6 weeks. Click. That was the requirements. I was like, dang, that's like not what I was expecting as a favor. And so I don't ship a product. And I remember like I hadn't seen any of the data yet. I hadn't seen anything that FreightWaves had, like the Sonar had, right? I was on the media side working to try to fire Mark Solomon. Kidding. Um, hiring Kelly, I'll put it that way. And I remember a guy named, I think it was Martin. We went into GCP and I looked at this data and I was like, oh my God. It was like I was blown away with what was here, right? And I still think it's probably underserved in the market, what the data that sits there and what you guys have built. And I went to Boulder and I met with a buddy of mine, actually currently employed at Trimble, just to get inspired by, because he was always designed everything for me. And 6 weeks later, some of us in this room were, in fact, many of us in this room in this building were on stage demoing the first cut of Sonar SCI, which became kind of a flagship product for the shippers, right? FreightWaves didn't really have much of a shipper net, if you will.
Yep.
And honestly, that was one of the more fun projects that I've had the opportunity to be a part of, was building out SCI.
It's been an amazing product. I want to talk about Carowin.
Yep, please.
You left FreightWaves. You were at My Carrier for a bit, but you had this idea to go start this platform.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about My.
So it kind of started. Dalton's probably in the audience somewhere. I don't know. Dalton, you out there? No, he skipped. Oh, there he is. Hi, Dalton. I met this guy named Dalton Thielens, who's kind of been an amazing human, through Eric Lenz, a guy that built the network at Global Trans. And I spent a lot of time up in Green Bay, Wisconsin, looking at what a trucking company like Dalton's fleet of 400 trucks operates off of. And it's hardware. I wouldn't even call it software, right? These guys that bought Innovative or TL2000 or TruckMate or anything that was on the AS400, I was marveled that it still, not that it worked, that everything else that was plugged into it, they're able to get loads delivered and they're able to book loads. And I was just blown away that in 2024, 25, that hardware was running a trucking company. And so it was really inspiring. We went through and we kind of mapped it all out. And I really kind of had this vision that modernizing trucking, we'll come to the small carriers next, right, was something that really needed to happen. All of the investment, everything that we've talked about today, everything we talked about yesterday, has largely been shipper technology, broker technology, and very little on the carrier side, right? Very little VC money is poured into it. And kind of like what had happened with visibility, I just felt compelled to help the truckers, especially in the underserved community, get access to technology. And I wanted to build something. We built a product at 10.4, just so you know. So you go back to our first product at 10.4 was called Nonstop. And it was a TMS that we built with drivers, tractors, trailers, orders, and customers. Very simple UI. And we had like 11,000 companies use it. Andrew wouldn't let me charge for the software back then. So it was a free model, and free has a shelf life, right? People are only going to use something that's not supported in free for so long. And so when Jake Papa and we were down working with Navajo in Denver last year, and Jake came about and decided, he was like, I really would love to be your business partner. I would love to help you take this mission on. Kind of really cemented it, because I worked with him at Global Trans and at 10.4 to really take the product to market. And now we've got, probably one of the most comprehensive and impressive platforms for carriers that's ever been built. And what we're going to do with it is pretty compelling. And then we're in the process of moving up market to work with mobility and automation, because fleets on legacy technology aren't ready for AI. They can't really do a lot with it. There's like single shot agentic things they can do that take something from 8 to 7, 6 to 5. But our mission is to really help. If you think about, Oracle became famous for enterprise resource planning, ERP. Everybody here knows what an ERP is. We really want to focus on enterprise resource automation, which is automating what a user has to do, pushing a load through a system. We want our technology to be able to do that for the carrier.
The circle of service stuff.
The circle of service, that's exactly right. So Dalton and you have both been educating me on circle of service.
Eberhard, Don mentioned it yesterday in the conversation. Only the old school OG
It's so
know what circle of service is.
Yes. And so mobility for us is all about
It's a way to drop the name. People know you're one of the club.
I realized that, yeah.
You know what an asset is. Anyways, Travis, I got to ask one question.
Yeah.
We're going to do this again in a year.
Yeah.
What has Carrier One accomplished in that year?
I think what we really want to do is, we had a demo today about automate. I come from a brokerage background, right? So I've started a brokerage, sold a couple of brokerages. I want the carrier community and the broker community to have a platform where they can automate communication together. I'm not a load board, right? We're not trying to get involved in that matching, but when a carrier wants in one platform, they want to get paid. They want to have load flow. They want to be able to communicate with their driver. They want to be able to pay their drivers. They want to be able to have a driver accrual screen. They want to be able to solve everything in a singular system. And our goal is to bring this singular vertical market. I think some people might refer to it as a silo. I think it's really more of a vertical solution for a carrier and a broker to be able to automate their workflow together. And in order to do that, it really comes down to sharing, and it kind of ties to some of the core principles we'd had with visibility. But that's really what we want to do, is we want to help everybody, really truly automate, kind of like what Bill said in the previous session. Like, you click a truck and it shows up. It's kind of similar to what we're doing.
Amazing. Well, Travis, thank you so much. Good luck, and excited to see where it goes.
Awesome. Thanks, Craig.